Good afternoon, friends, family of the American Forces Network Bavaria, joining us here at Rose Barracks. We would also like to give a special welcome to Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs' family, who are watching this through our live stream. Distinguished guests joining us today are Mr. Michael Daniels, Deputy Garrison Commander for U.S. Army Garrison Bavaria, Sergeant Major Retired Rich Puckett. On behalf of the Director of American Forces Network Europe, Lieutenant Colonel Adam Hallmark and Command Sergeant Major Matthew Howard, welcome. Thank you all for joining American Forces Network Bavaria and dedicating this broadcast station in honor of former station manager, Master Sergeant Marcia J. Triggs. Please rise for the invocation given by Major Jeff Bryan, Chaplain for the Rose Barracks Community, U.S. Army Garrison Bavaria. Please remain standing for the German National Anthem and the United States National Anthem.
Good afternoon. May I offer this prayer for today's special event. Almighty God, on this special day on which we dedicate this wonderful building to Master Sergeant Triggs, I ask your blessing upon it, its missions, and all those who may pass through its doorways. May it be a place where its visitors will be inspired, united, and blessed. I thank you for her life, her productive career, and may her legacy live on through today's event. I ask these things in the most holy name of Christ. Amen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we've watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting, it all gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Please be seated. Presenting the opening remarks, Sergeant First Class Jose Ibarra, Station Manager for American Forces Network Bavaria.
Thank you, Sergeant Humphrey, for joining us all the way from AFN K-Town to sing the national anthem for us today. Thank you for joining us on this special day as we honor and recognize the dedication and commitment of Master Sergeant Marcia J. Triggs. She was an exemplary leader who has left an everlasting impact here at AFN Bavaria, the U.S. Army, the Army Public Affairs field, on her soldiers, and to those with whom she proudly served. Master Sergeant Marcia J. Triggs served as the station manager for AFN Bavaria from 2005 to 2007. She still embodies the principles by which the finest leaders live by. Her lasting legacy is in the Army, is in the many soldiers and civilians who are better people for having known her. It is our honor to be here today to dedicate this building in memory of her. From this day forth, this building will be the American Forces Network Bavaria Master Sergeant Marcia J. Triggs Broadcast Center. Thank you.
I would like to invite Mr. Donald Wren, the Director of Public Affairs for U.S. Army Garrison Bavaria, to say a few words.
Good afternoon to the Triggs family members that are online, Mr. Daniels, Colonel Hallmark, Sergeant Major Howard, Sergeant Major Puckett, Team AFN, alumni of AFN, and friends. On behalf of Colonel Chris Danbeck and Sergeant Major Sebastian Camacho, welcome to Rose Barracks in Bavaria. They're sorry they couldn't be here today for this dedication ceremony, but they're currently traveling back from meetings in San Antonio at the Installation Management Command headquarters. As the Garrison Director of Public Affairs, I consider it an honor to speak during today's event. I did not personally know Master Sergeant Triggs, but our time in uniform did overlap. We were both part of a Public Affairs NCO Corps that were tapped to lead during a time of significant change across our career field. Marcia was one of the first print journalists to be placed as an AFN station commander as the transition in our career field began, moved away from having a focus either on print or broadcast journalism. I still remember the rumblings and shock that rolled across the career field when this happened. As you'll hear from today's speakers and from the video testimonials that'll be played, her leadership, skills, and care for soldiers was extremely evident by the recognition this station received during her time here. When Sergeant Ibarra and Sergeant Dornbos approached me last year about the possibility of getting the building named after her, I was more than happy to walk them through the process as we had just stood up our installation memorial board process. They did the work to get us here today. To dedicate this building in her name recognizes her legacy and ability to lead public affairs soldiers. It's now my privilege to introduce Command Sergeant Major Matthew Howard, Command Sergeant Major for American Forces Network Europe.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Colonel Hallmark, Mr. Daniels, Sergeant Major Puckett, and First Sergeant Wren, and all of our guests, both here and watching on their computer screens. Thank you for joining us on this, well, it's a really unprecedented day. Before I begin the bulk of my remarks, I'd like to give some thank yous. You know, yesterday when we were doing the rehearsals, we were like, do we acknowledge the narrator? And I said, no, we never acknowledge the narrator. And I thought about it because we always acknowledge the band, we always acknowledge the anthem singer, we always acknowledge the troops on the field. But hey, this is our ceremony. So, to our narrator, Specialist Roberts, voice of the Eagle. To our camera operators, Sergeant Abacon and Sergeant Joyner, and station manager, guest speaker, and also the director, Sergeant Ibarra. And then what many of you might not know is there's a whole crew of people inside right now making sure that this stream It looks as professional, as AFN broadcast worthy as possible, running audio, running video. So thanks to all of those folks, the unsung heroes of a lot of these events. I'd also like to thank Staff Sergeant Dornbos. Don mentioned it, but he, along with Sergeant Ibarra, but they really spearheaded this. And I say this is unprecedented because in my 30 years, much of it in AFN, I've never walked into a building that was dedicated to a former public affairs professional in AFN. So this truly is unique and super deserving. In 2006, I arrived in Germany as the station manager of AFN Heidelberg. The leadership at AFN Europe headquarters, they called me to Coleman Barracks, and they let me know, they gave me their appraisal of the station I was inheriting. And quite frankly, we were last in every category, 5th out of 5. So as a leader, I was like, well, who's number 1? So I have a model to aim for. Engineering, Bavaria. Radio, Bavaria. Television production, Bavaria. Leadership and administration, I think you guessed the answer, Bavaria. So Marcia Triggs and her ops director, Tony McKinney, and the AFN Bavaria team was just a straight up juggernaut of excellence. I have seen and been fortunate enough to have been stationed in some great AFN stations in my career, but I've never seen a station that performed at the level that AFN Bavaria did. It's a tradition of excellence that still continues under Sergeant Ibarra's watch today. So this dedication is not just a tremendous way to honor a tremendous NCO. It's a challenge to the current AFN team, a challenge to all of the current and future AFN Bavaria personnel to never accept anything less than excellence and to do so with warmth, humor, compassion, and humility. Every day when you walk into the Marcia Triggs Broadcast Center, don't just remember a public affairs leader who left us way too soon, but strive to be the very best soldier, the very best non-commissioned officer, the very best broadcast professional you can be, just like Marcia was. And now it's my honor to introduce another public affairs, I wrote public affairs leader, but I should say public affairs legend, that I've looked up to for years. My first encounter with Rich Puckett was not a pleasant one. I don't know if he remembers it. In 1999, I was a student at BNOC, which is now at the Advanced Leader course. I was bored out of my skull in a press tent during a media operations exercise. To kill time, I got the brilliant idea to start making jokes about the fictional country that we were supporting in the exercise. Little did I know that Sergeant First Class Rich Puckett, who was role-playing as a local national reporter that day, was eavesdropping on us from outside the tent. So I got grilled mercilessly by him. I got grilled mercilessly by the schoolhouse cadre, including Tony McKinney, who became the operations director for AFN Bavaria under Sergeant Triggs. And I learned a valuable lesson that never make fun of the host nation, even when they're fictional. So anyhow, I've crossed paths multiple times over the years with both, with Marcia and then with Rich. Interestingly enough, a few years later, after that unpleasant experience, I was the NCOIC of Soldiers Radio, Marcia was the NCOIC of Army News Service, and Rich was the public affairs officer for Sergeant Major of the Army Tilly. And then a few years later, we're in Iraq. I deployed to Iraq with the Big Red 1 in the south. Marcia was the NCOIC for 3rd Infantry Division Public Affairs, U.S. Division North. And Rich was the Corps Public Affairs Sergeant Major in the U.S. Forces Iraq Public Affairs Sergeant Major. So it's a very small career field, and outstanding NCOs like Marcia Triggs and Rich Puckett have had a profound and enduring impact on me and on the entire mass communication profession of the United States Army. So with that, it is my honor to introduce Sergeant Major Retired Rich Puckett.
I actually do remember that, Matt. You weren't the only one that did that. As Mr. Wren can attest, there were plenty of students that didn't realize that just because you're from the host nation, you may actually speak English. So we did speak English. So, but appreciate the introduction. Sergeant Humphrey, where did he go? Where's our singer? Wow, that was absolutely spectacular. What an amazing way to start this ceremony and to pay tribute to Marcia. The fact that we have sunshine today, smiling down on us a little bit, the German sunshine, right? We're lucky to have that this time of year, but that was a heartwarming way to get this thing started. So, to Marcia's family and friends who unfortunately were not able to join us, particularly her brother Alonzo, who I've known since right before Marcia passed away. I got to meet her family and spend time with her family in Chicago in her last days. It's an honor that he was part of this process. I mean, he was intimately involved from the beginning. He continues to carry on the legacy of Marcia every single day in his heart, in his love for soldiers, and his love for what Marcia did in the Army. So Alonzo, and to the Buford family, hope you guys are online watching. Hopefully we don't mess this up. But just so you know, we are thinking of you. We wish you could be here with us for this special day. And as Sergeant Major Howard said, this is a tremendous honor, one at which I'm sure Marcia is watching down and completely embarrassed by, because it's not her style to take the spotlight and have it shown on her. She was very much behind the scenes pushing people forward. I want to thank our VIPs for today, Colonel Hallmark, Don for coming out today, our USO director for the region, some of the other distinguished visitors that we've had today. Thanks for coming out and spending this moment with us this morning and pay tribute to Marcia. I'm certainly honored. I feel very lucky that I happen to be living in Germany still, working up at USARAF when Sergeant Major Howard and I talked about coming down for this ceremony. Lucky that I knew Marcia and worked with her multiple times over the course of my career. I was planning to just come here and watch it, but be part of this is incredibly special. So Sergeant Major, thank you for allowing me to come and share a few thoughts about Marcia. I got to tell you, it's really hard to believe that we're more than 11 years now since we lost Marcia. The suddenness of her departure, the impact that it had across the field, the fact that it was so long ago. I was reminded talking to her brother just the other day about Nick, and he's 24 years old now. He was 12 going on 13 then. And the heartbreak knowing that he now was going to be a 12-year-old without a mom, and an amazing mom at that. The fact that he's now beyond college years and has moved on and making a great life for himself. Nick, I hope you're watching. If you're not watching now, I'm sure you will later today when you wake up, since it's about 6 in the morning, wherever you are in the United States right now. So thanks for sharing your mom with us. For as long as we had her, we were really lucky. And we're lucky to have you with us today as well. As I mentioned, losing her the way we did, it impressed upon me, and I'm sure it did everyone if you've looked at her bio, how something as simple as a very easy procedure initially turned to something that within a few days we went from, she didn't even notify her family she was having this procedure because it was so simple, to losing her as rapidly as we did. And as I said, the shock that it impacted her family, how quickly everything changed in an instant for her and everyone around her. But because of that, I think you look at moments like today, and it's an opportunity to remember that it's not about the incident you lost somebody, but it's about those 17 years or so that we had her in the Army, and the impact that she had on everyone here. We wouldn't be here today if she had not done the things she did, and if she was not the person that she was. So again, it's a wonderful opportunity to pay tribute to that. But today is more than just about what we've lost. It's about being lucky for all we've gained, and about being able to be touched by the light that Marcia shined on all of us. And even if you didn't know her, and I know there were probably very few folks who got to meet her over the course of her life, that reflection continues to shine from the people who did know her, who did learn her lessons, and who did experience her wisdom, her humor, her love for soldiers, and the way she treated people so well, and how you wanted to be treated yourself. And as I mentioned, that smile, no matter how miserable she was, and I can tell you the USO tour that we went with Sergeant Major Howard, then I think Staff Sergeant Howard and Staff Sergeant Triggs, it was only 2 weeks, But it was a lot of long days. It was military flights from D.C. to the Middle East, to Iraq and Afghanistan. I think we went to Kazakhstan as well. A lot of long flights and a lot of time with soldiers, getting the opportunity to meet celebrities who took their holidays to go spend time with them. I have photos somewhere back in the day of print photos when we actually had to print them of both Matt and Marcia just completely decked out on the floor. But she continued to drive on. And if anyone knows Sergeant Major of the Army Tilly, he was not impressed by a whole lot, but he was impressed by Marcia and her drive to continue to tell soldier stories. And that's what really this is all about. What AFN is all about is telling the soldier story, telling what we are all about as a military, as a family, and as a community. And Marcia was a part of that, and she loved being part of that. So the fact that she's going to get to continue with her name on the door is a tremendous tribute to her. Her impact on so many, as I mentioned, 12 years ago almost, continues to this day and will continue long beyond today's ceremony. Not only a new generation of soldiers who are lucky to work for people who were privates when Marcia was here, that next generation, Sergeant Cologne, who was here as a young soldier, now a first sergeant, now coaching the Army boxing team, was part of that award-winning team of Tony McKinney and Marcia Triggs. Now first sergeant, now a coach of the Army. He is sharing all those lessons well beyond the small little family of public affairs soldiers. And this legacy of leadership that was started in 1995, I was personally lucky to get to see that at interrupt steps along the way. As Sergeant Major mentioned in the Pentagon, and a little before that, I did see her at NCOAS as well. She did not make fun of the host nation at all. I'm sure she did something that somebody gave her a hard time for, but that was one mistake she didn't make. But in particular, from our time together in 2002 to 2004 in the Pentagon, seeing her again and talking about her experience. She was in the Pentagon on 9/11, working at ACPA. Although they were in Arlington, they weren't necessarily in the building when it was attacked. She was there working with the Chief of Public Affairs Office to tell the story of the survivors and the people who were trying to save people on 9/11. She was in the middle of that. She ran to the sound of the guns, which is exactly who Marcia was. And she had the opportunity to probably take easier paths after that. But she was, as Don mentioned, one of the first to raise their hand and say, you know what, this new thing going to do broadcast of as a public affairs, as a print journalist, I'm ready to take that challenge. I want to move on. I want to learn. I want to be better than I am now and share these lessons that some broadcasters probably haven't had and then learn from them. Because one of the things she had to do when she was here, as the soldiers can attest to, it's a small staff. You can't have one or two people who don't know how to do any of those broadcast skills. So she learned how to do help with the morning shows. She learned how to do voicing. She learned how to do all those things that a broadcaster takes for granted that a print journalist never did. And she learned it, and she learned it from one of the best, Tony McKinney, and passed that on. And not necessarily the craft of doing it, but the importance of it, and why you had to rehearse that, and why you had to train to get better at that. She knew the importance of that. And as Don mentioned, she served at a critical time in our career field changes. We went from being a garrison-focused public affairs force, a lot of civilians, which thank God we still have them today because we were a much smaller force, but we were taking soldiers out of public affairs offices and garrisons and putting them in brigade combat teams, deploying them constantly. As you've seen in her bio, she deployed twice with 3rd ID to Iraq. And if you weren't ready to go do that, you weren't going to get promoted. And you were not helping your commanders and the Army tell the story of what we were trying to do at that time. And she did a fabulous job. And it was that second deployment that I got to spend some more time with her. She was finishing up her deployment when I arrived. And I think you had the same issue that she had. So when Marcia got to 3rd ID, she did not have, I think she had General Lynch was the commander, very hard charging division commander, very well known. But you can survive that. Her second division commander, however, was the former chief of public affairs who just left the Pentagon and was coming to help deploy that unit to Iraq and lead that unit into combat. You talk about having the big boss over your shoulder who is going to judge every single thing that you do every day. I think you had General Brooks, correct? Who was the predecessor to General Kukula. So at the time, we had two chiefs of public affairs who were serving as division commanders in Iraq. And so the hardest job in public affairs was to be the PAOs for those, because they knew what right looked like. And I can tell you from talking to General Kukula, his team there, and I know yours did as well, they knew what right looked like. They embodied it every single day. And they were the most respected division PA teams that we had in Iraq. They did a fabulous job. General Kuklo loved the work that they did for him, and I know General Brooks did as well. General Brooks ended up going on to be a 4-star general, which says something about Matt. Did you take credit for that, I hope, Sergeant Major? Because you should have. But Marcia did such a great job, we awarded her with another opportunity to go back and work for the Pentagon. And she ended up getting the opportunity to go to Chicago, which was her last assignment. And although she wasn't a Chicago White Sox fan or a Cubs fan, she was very close to her family that lived in St. Louis, and very excited to be home with her family, who she had not seen. One of those deployments, I believe, was 15 months. The other one was a little over a year. So being home, having a semi-normal work schedule, and getting only a few hours from where your mom and dad and your brother and sister are, was a great, what she looked at as a present from God, that this is payback for all these months of being away from my family. So when I arrived in the Pentagon as the new Sergeant Major of Public Affairs, I got to go to Chicago, spend some time with the team there, and we sat down, and one of the first things she told me was she's so happy. She was home, she was with her family, she was finally close, and she was making the best of it. She wasn't going to waste a minute while she was back there. And she did a stellar job. If you don't know, some of the public affairs folks might, the regional offices that Army Public Affairs has, LA, Chicago, and New York, unlike any job in the career field. Whoops, daisy. In Los Angeles, you're working with the movie industry. In New York, you're working with the publishing industry and the big New York media. And in Chicago, where Marcia was, you're doing outreach in Chicago in the greater Midwest, which was expanding when she was there. So she brought soldiers to get recognized at ball games. She interacted with universities. We brought in general officers like the Chief of Staff of the Army and the Sec Army to meet these movers and shakers in the Midwest who could help us tell the Army story. And she did an awesome job at that. But sadly, the worst possible thing could happen. She barely had been there for a little over a year when we lost her. I was honored to be there with our Chief of Public Affairs in the hospital right before, there with the family as we laid her to rest. I still think about it all the time. Her son was just a couple years older than my little girl. So it in some ways is very haunting. It also made me really appreciate that I was lucky to have that as well. So coming here today, looking back now a decade removed, I can't think of a better tribute to somebody who made such a leap forward in our career field. One of the things that we did before this, I know you named the studio here after Marcia. We created a new award with the Army Public Affairs Alumni Association, the Marcia Award, Marcia Triggs Leadership Award. It's about 9 years worth of recognition of senior NCOs who are among the best in our career field, and several of those are NCOs that work for her, to include Master Sergeant Cologne. And he sent me a letter last night that I'll read here shortly. I don't want to steal the thunder, although we might not be able to see it. Hopefully the folks back home can still see the video. If not, I know they'll be able to see it later. Some of these tributes from the people who cared for her and who learned so much from her. The first one was from Major Mark Miller, who was one of the PAOs in the division with her when they were in Iraq. And he told me this story about a week ago. And it's, again, the epitome of who Marcia was. The deployment was kind of winding down. They were at about the 8th month mark, and he and one of their NCOs was in the operations center. It was late in the day. They were all tired. And Sergeant Triggs came in and looked them both in the eye. It was Major Miller and Sergeant McCargo. I don't know if anybody knows Master Sergeant. I don't think he's a Sergeant Major yet. Maybe. I don't know. People get promoted so fast these days. But Sergeant McCargo and Major Miller were sitting there doing their job, and she just looked him square in the eye and goes, "Am I a bad NCO?" And they're like, "What are you talking about? You're an awesome NCO. You are one of the best NCOs we've ever worked with." She goes, "Well, our soldier is wearing boots on 2 left boots on his feet right now. It's my fault." He's like, "How is that your fault?" He goes, "Well, he was wearing torn boots, and they were all." And I said, "You need to go to supply, get new boots. You're going to hurt your feet." So he went, got new boots, and for whatever reason, he ended up with 2 left boots on. And she took it personally that the soldier was walking around in pain because he didn't notice the difference between a left and a right boot. But Major Miller told me that was the kind of stuff she did all the time. She was never satisfied with thinking she was really good at what she was doing. She was always questioning herself to try to get better at what she did. And she certainly did that here at AFN, and she did that every step of the way. The second was a personal note that Sergeant Cologne sent me last night. He said he wishes he could be here. If we'd done this 2 years ago, he could have, because he was deployed here in Iraq. Of course, about this time, I think, is when he had COVID, so he may not be able to make it anyways. But he wanted to share this with you because he wasn't able to provide a video for this. He said he truly wishes he could have been in attendance for such a special occasion. When he reflects back on his career at his time at AFN, which was the most memorable, we were a family. And part of that was because of Master Sergeant Triggs, which I can say was a huge influence on my career. She was a compassionate leader that really knew how to connect with her soldiers. And he wanted to say thank you to the team who helped bring this to life, because without you, Sergeant Barra, Sergeant Ermis, this today would never have happened. As Sergeant Major said, that we don't have public affairs NCOs or officers recognized in this manner very often. I know of only one other building in all of Europe that's named after a public affairs soldier, and it was an officer who earned the Medal of Honor. So this is a significant moment in our career field and in the Army as well. So thanks to everyone who helped make this happen. The one thing I ask, as I know a lot of you come and go and you have a lot of visitors, is when you come through this building and you see the sign, the first thing you will see is this when you come into the door. And for the PA family, the most important thing we do is tell people's story. Who's going to tell your story when you're gone? For Marcia, it's all of us. And I will tell you, when they come in, slow them down, have them read the plaque, get to know Marcia, because Marcia had a story that is worth telling. And you all are a part of helping ensure that gets told. And with that, hopefully we'll be able to show the videos. I appreciate the opportunity to come, and thank you, everyone.
Many people around the world knew Master Sergeant Triggs, including family, friends, and people with whom she has worked. While they couldn't be in Germany today, they sent us videos sharing their thoughts and memories of her. Please direct your attention to the screen.
My name is Sadie Buffer, and Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs was my daughter. She was the youngest of 6 children. She was the pride of my life because I never had any problems from her as a kid. She was very respectful to her parents and to all that she met. Also, she was very concerned that her mom and dad lived a comfortable life. She also was concerned about other family members. Always asked, what could she do to help? She was not selfish. I am so proud of the things that my daughter accomplished while she was in the military. I am so honored that they would think enough of my daughter to do this for her. Thank you. God bless you all.
My name is Alonzo Bufford Jr., and Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs was my sister. First, I would like to start off by saying a very special thank you to the Army and AFN Bavaria for honoring my sister and naming the broadcast center after her. Not only does this preserve her name and her legacy, but hopefully it will inspire every young girl and every young lady that's watching this program, that walks past that building, that enters the communication center, hopefully it will inspire them that they too can excel in the Army and they can excel in anything in life they put their mind to. Marcia really enjoyed her assignment at AFN Bavaria because that assignment presented her with a challenge. It made her a better soldier, a better journalist, and a better leader. Even though Marcia didn't get a chance to obtain her ultimate career goal, which was to become a sergeant major, I am certain she is smiling down from heaven, so grateful and so appreciative of the accolades that she's received. And she's so happy to know that her work and her service is appreciated, and she touched so many people. I can't wait for the day that I get to visit the Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs Broadcast Center in person. Once again, thank you for honoring my sister.
We are Carolyn
and Sammy Lewis
from Jonesboro, Arkansas. Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs is our niece. What a prestige honor from the Army and AFM Bavaria in naming the communication building in honor of Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs. Her memories live on in the hearts of all those that love her.
Hello, my name is Tanya Yancey. I am Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs' cousin. When I think about Marcia, there are a couple of things that I think about that made me really proud. One of the things was the whole idea of her joining the Army in the first place. I remember thinking she has lost her mind because she was such a girly girl. She's so fragile. I'm like, she's not going to make it through basic training. But then I looked up and she was thriving. She was thriving in the Army. And that again speaks to who Marcia Triggs was. She was determined to do her very best and to give her all in whatever it is she decided to do. And the idea now that a building is being named after her to honor her is another moment that I can be proud of to call Marcia Triggs my cousin. I thank you so very much for naming this center after her and continuing her legacy or the memory of her legacy, because it does speak to who she was when she was here with us. So thank you so very much for honoring my cousin Marcia Triggs. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Tamara Zellis-Buck, and I bring you greetings from Southeast Missouri State University in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. We proudly celebrate with you as you honor our alumna, Marcia Buford Triggs, with this building dedication. I'm especially excited, not only because I am the chairperson of the Department of Mass Media, which is where Marcia learned her craft, but also because I was one of her classmates while she pursued her degree. I knew her well, and I can tell you, we spent many long nights together in the pre-digital age, pacing up pages of what was then called the Kappa Arrow, our student newspaper. Marcia was a hardworking, dedicated journalist then, so it's no surprise to me that she took those skills she learned right here at Southeast and put them to work, sharing stories for a country she loved and served so well. Congratulations to her family, her friends, and her colleagues, and thank you for allowing us to be a part of such a special occasion.
Hello, my name is Louise Cloudy, and I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and I was the mentor of Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs. Our sorority's motto is sisterhood, scholarship, and service, which I know is similar to the values of the Army. I would like to thank you for this honor. Master Sergeant Triggs Broadcast Center is a truly great honor, and I'd like to say thank you very much.
My name is Michelle Smart, and it's my pleasure to have been given the opportunity to say a few words at this momentous occasion to preserve the legacy of Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs. Having known this young lady for most of her life, it is wonderful to know that her hard work and her dedication will not go unrecognized. As one of the sorors of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, she was an exemplary example of serving the community with passion and tenacity. I would like to thank the U.S. Army and AFM Bavaria for bestowing such a wonderful honor on someone so justly deserving. Thank you.
My name is Angela Jenkins, and Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs was my sorority sister and my friend. I want to say congratulations to her family and thank you to the Armed Forces Network Bavaria for dedicating this broadcast center in her name. Marcia loved her work, and she was a great ambassador for Army Public Affairs wherever she went. So this building dedication is a wonderful tribute to her. And I hope all who entered the broadcast center will become as inspired as she was about people and their stories. Thank you again so much for bestowing this great honor upon my friend, Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs, and HUA Army.
Hi, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Shalisa D. Jeter, retired, and I serve with Marcia J. Triggs on many different occasions, and I am honored to be able to make this video to show my appreciation for AFN Bulgaria in naming it the Marcia J. Triggs Broadcast Center. She is an amazing person, and I am just amazed that her legacy still lives on. I love everything about her and what she stands for, so she continues to make us proud. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Darcy Shepard. I am sending this message from Bangkok, Thailand, but I actually knew Sergeant Marcia Triggs from 2006 to 2007 when she was my station commander at AFN Bavaria. That was my real first duty station in the Army, and she was the best leader to have as an 18-year-old soldier in Germany. She led with humility and grace, but also held us to the highest standards. And she really showed me what good leadership in the Army looks like. Especially as an 18-year-old, I just had no clue what I was doing. And she was there for me, took me under her wing, whether it was getting my Class A's in order or making sure I was doing PT, all of that stuff. So I can think of no more deserving person than Sergeant Triggs. May she rest in peace, and thank you so much for giving this honor to her.
Hello, my name is Tony McKinney, and I served with Marcia Triggs from 2005 to 2007 when I was Marcia's operations officer and she was the station manager of AFN Bavaria. I will say that there are a few people who you meet in your lifetime that are quite like her. And I would just say that, the true measure is long after you no longer have day-to-day dealings with them, you still find yourself saying, how would that person have done it? How would Marcia have handled this situation? I still think of her a lot, and I think of how much she loved, her family, her husband, her son, and how much they meant to her. And I'll never forget how stoic she was when she found out she was going to a unit from AFN Bavaria to a unit that was going to be deploying shortly after she got there. And I remember asking her, aren't you a little worried? Aren't you concerned? And she was just so professional and so eager to go back to her public affairs roots and apply them in a real world, we say, a combat environment. And she was eager to do that. She knew she was going to miss her family and they were going to be apart, but she had important work to do. And there's another instance of me, tucking that away in my brain and, years later thinking, remember how Marcia handled a tough situation. And so thanks to all of you for being here. Thanks again to those who made this day possible. I can't thank you enough. And thank you for the honor to remember a great soldier and a great person, Marcia Triggs.
I'm Rainer Wunderlich, Chief Engineer, AFN Bavaria. I first met Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs when she became our station manager. That was around 2006. And when she came to the station, she was really nice, really friendly, and her attention was teamwork and the look of AFN Bavaria, how we are presenting ourselves. She was really professional that way and made sure that on all the remotes we used to go out, she was present and made sure the setup and our folks looking right, all the interviews were lined up, and she was really paying attention to that. And that really changed the way we were looked at AFN Bavaria, because her professionalism got transferred into the station as well. All I can say, thanks Marcia, and you helped us to develop a real nice station here at AFN Bavaria, and I think some of it is still being remembered here, and I think many of us in the network still remember you. Thanks and bye.
Hello, I am Gwendolyn Buffer Booker from Memphis, Tennessee, and I am the first cousin of Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs. I extend a very special thank you to the United States Army, the Armed Forces Network Bavaria, for recognizing Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs' compassion, outstanding leadership, dedicated services, unparalleled excellence, and countless contribution by naming this building the Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs Communication Building. With great appreciation, I thank you.
Hello, I'm Jewel Dunlap, the sister of Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs. I am so grateful to the staff in the Army for your diligent works in naming this building in which my sister worked and honoring her for her dedicated services to you. Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs was indeed a humble, blessed servant to all who came in contact with her. Again, I thank each and every one of you who worked so hard and made this thought to become a vision. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Landry, and Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs was my mom. I would like to say a very special thank you to the Army and AFN Bavaria for honoring her legacy by naming this building after her. As a young boy, I remember how long and how hard my mom worked as station commander here. By naming this building after her, I will no longer think of this day, May 6th, as a day to be sad, but as a day to celebrate. Once again, thank you so much for honoring my mom, Master Sergeant Marcia Triggs, by naming this building the Marcia Triggs Communication Building. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to your left as Command Sergeant Major Howard, Sergeant Major Puckett, Lieutenant Colonel Hallmark, and Staff Sergeant Stephen Dornbos unveil the new sign. Please stand for the benediction and the playing of the Army song.
Lord, as we depart today, let us go forward with the memory of Master Sergeant Triggs and honor the life that she lived. Protect us in our travels. Bless the future missions here. Let us go on with a deep spirit of love, respect, and care for each other. I ask this in your holy name, Christ. Amen.
This concludes today's ceremony. Please join us inside the building as we mount the shadow box in the entryway for the Marcia J. Triggs Broadcast Center. We would like to give a special thank you to USO Bavaria for providing refreshments and snacks for our guests. Thank you for attending today's ceremony.